If you have to start off with defining financial inclusion, and defining financial inclusion to not just say loans, and especially as Dr. Moore was saying, the group-based joint liability loans, but broad basing it to say that, including savings, which is actually the fundamental requirement of the client more than even the loans, remittance, and loans of different types, not just the group loans, but mini or micro enterprise loans, and probably micro housing loans also. If you have to broad base the definition of financial inclusion from a really holistic point of view, and then look at it from the delivery side, and what have we achieved over the last few years or decades, whatever. We have the banks which have been taken over by the government in 1969, primarily to achieve this objective, the socialistic objectives, and then followed with PSL norms, etc., directed lendings. Then we have a lot of, and all the banks are of course regulated by the RBI. We have the cooperative banks largely regulated by the local governments with some kind of a dotted line with the RBIs. Then we have the MFI, NBFCs again who are regulated by the RBIs, and the non-NBFC MFIs who are currently not really regulated by anyone specifically, minus the bill which is pending still. So if you look at it from the supply side, you see that there are a lot of people trying to play a role in the same area for the same client, and coming from different perspectives, different entities, different forms, different regulators. And at the end of it, what you find is that it's full confusion. There's total confusion. There's no clarity. And today, if the government of India wants to hold one person or one entity responsible for the failure of financial inclusion of 600 million or whatever number of 100 millions, who would that be? And there is no clear answer on that. Until there is an answer to that question, maybe we'll continue to keep looking for micro solutions. My suggestion is that more than even focusing on the delivery side for the moment, I think we should, more than looking at the regulated side, I think we should start looking at the regulator side. Can we step one step backwards and see who is regulating this whole financial inclusion purpose or financial inclusion initiative or movement? Who is the person who is regulating it? And if the answer is that there is no single entity which is actually regulating that, then can we really start looking at getting the government to create a separate entity which will actually regulate financial inclusion for the 600 million people who are currently excluded? And if that kind of a regulatory body can be created, then what happens is that body can be given the task of getting, say, 300 million or whatever number of 100 millions financially included over the next 3 years, 5 years, or whatever time frame. And that body can then go about and do that on an exclusive basis. If you take the RBI today, and to be very fair to them, microfinance or NBFCs or whatever is a very small fly in the entire plate of RBI. It's too small, and it's impossible for them to really come and regulate us or monitor us. And since they cannot monitor us, the only way they can regulate us is by cutting off all your options and all your flexibilities. Make you completely powerless to do any mistake. Forget that you can't do anything good, that's okay, but you can't make a mistake. So because you can't make a mistake, I am happy because I don't have a problem from you. So that's the way that we can be regulated, so long as you are such a small fly on the whole plate of RBI's focus. And I think that's very fact that they can't really change it anything from that either. So on the other hand, if we can create a body which is completely focused only on the financial inclusion and has nothing else on its plate, then obviously that body will want to regulate. But before you regulate, you have to develop. So that body is then going to focus on development of the sector, and development initiatives have to come in. A supportive environment has to get created by which you can really attract large number of entrepreneurs to come into the space and take the financial inclusion seriously forward. And once that happens, of course, there will be risks and there will be problems which will come up, but this body should have, and hopefully will have, the bandwidth to manage and put in place regulatory structures to manage the risks which will arise from that. A good example, actually a parallel example, is NHB. NHB was created in the 70s and late 70s and early 80s. They did a lot of developmental work, supportive work, to create an environment which attracted a lot of entrepreneurs into that, including HDFC and the rest. And there are a lot of income tax related support systems which are brought in. So many things are done by the NHB. And that really now has created a very vibrant housing finance market in the country. And today NHB is focused on micro housing. They want to do a similar repeat. They want to do a development role in micro housing to try and attract entrepreneurs to create a live market in the micro housing sector. And of course they also give refinance. They are not just regulator, they also support even with in terms of refinance. And to ensure that there is no discontinuity between RBI's overall financial controls or financial approach, NHB is a subsidiary of RBI, and the NHB chairman reports into the governor of RBI to bring about a continuity also while maintaining independence. So I would suggest that we really prevail upon the government to create maybe what we can call it as Financial Inclusion Regulatory and Development Authority, FIRDA, and that FIRDA can have a chairman who has to be someone who is passionate, who is knowledgeable and completely involved in the financial inclusion sector. And a person like Brishmohan Saab, the chairman of FIRDA. So if something like that happens, then what could happen is that, when you get a regulatory and when you get a supportive, creative, developmental related environment, entrepreneurs will always come. In the telecom they came, nobody went around and called them. In the IT sector they came, nobody went and asked them to come in. You created an environment very supportive, entrepreneurs can come and thrive, and the rest of it just happened. So maybe more than trying to focus on the delivery side, which is very difficult, we are talking with multitude kind of entities and units operating. Maybe we should talk of the regulator side, and if that something could be done. And this body, the organization which organizes seminar, Sadhan, any other association, Mr. Vijay Mohan, yourself, I think if all of you get together, I think this can become a reality.
So that's a completely new perspective from Mr. Vasudevan. I guess the point you're making is, just to stay on our topic, is that indeed there is a need for new institutions, but they already exist. There are many players on the ground that are doing many things. Because for some reason, there is an anxiety that these entities might not be well behaved. There is a need, in your view, to figure out an alternative regulatory system that then will feel more confident of doing this and moving forward. Certainly this is what you are suggesting in one direction. If you look at the United States, 12,000 banks today in that country. Many of the smaller banks actually have weathered the subprime crisis much better than the larger players have done. So clearly there is some evidence that the local players have actually been able to do well. They have of course been able to manage it within the existing regulatory structure. They have not necessarily created a separate entity to manage small banks relative to large banks. But what you're saying is maybe given our country, given our complexity, maybe there are other challenges that we may have to face.